So, Nomiki Konst, who just spends all her time defending the Democratic Party and defending the squad, is running for New York State Senate and against another AOC endorsed, DSA endorsed candidate, and Kristen Gonzalez. And guess who's endorsing her? Ro Khanna. You know, like I mean, Ro. I think he's like Ro. He supported sanctions on Nicaragua, and here he is on the Katie Halper show trying to explain that.
That's why you voted to impose sanctions on Nicaragua. And I would say that this is kind of a larger question, which I think that Jeff Sachs, friend of the show, though he's not been on, but this is your invitation, Jeff Sachs. Brilliant person, friend of Bernie Sanders, right? It was part of his campaign. He and Mark Westbrot have written about the way that sanctions harm the civilian population. They don't actually harm the government. I mean, we've seen this in the cases of Cuba still standing, Castro is still there. Is it not time for progressives and the progressive position to be anti-sanctions? Because kind of beyond what you think of those governments, whether or not you like them or not, it doesn't harm those governments. The government stays standing, and it's the civilians who die, who don't have access to medicine, who don't have access to life-saving medicine, to food. It just seems like this is like old school Reagan, or even going back further, we could go back to Monroe Doctrine. This is not where we should be focusing our priorities now.
Well, Katie, I agree with you that some of the sanctions have been poorly designed. In fact, I worked with Mark Weisbrot on Venezuela. Some of the sanctions there to make sure that they're not hurting the poorest people in Venezuela. And I would call on the State Department to implement sanctions in a way that goes after the regime in Nicaragua that has undoubtedly committed huge human rights abuses and is not a ethical actor, and not to design in a way that's going to deprive people of medicine and deprive people of food. I believe you can structure sanctions in that way. I mean, even the left, even though, look, I disagree with the BDS movement, as you know, I don't think that that's a correct one, but they're advocating sanctions. So it's not like the left doesn't believe in sanctions as well. I think the question is, how do you target the sanctions?
Look, all the sanctions that America does, all sanctions America does are bad. Period. The BDS sanctions are against a settler colonial state in Israel. So Israel is an American ally. So no, those sanctions are good. Okay? Like the thing about Ro Khanna is he's not a leader. I mean, I do think he's done some good legislation, but he's not a leader. And he doesn't have like a coherent leftist ideology. And we need someone who has like who have a coherent leftist ideology. And the other thing about is like Ro is he still thinks that we can work with Joe Manchin to still thinks we can work with Joe Manchin in order to and get Build Back Better passed. No, you can't. Biden does. What you have to do is pressure him to sign the bill, not just talk with him. Here's the thing about like voting Democrat. I mean, like if I would be willing to like vote Democrat, given like if Joe Biden he said he was going to do all the things that he planned on doing. I mean, he said he was going to at first there were some good like provisions in Build Back Better, universal pre-K. But everything that really was gonna regulate, everything that was going to regulate the climate, everything that was going to regulate the pharmaceutical companies, that all got stripped over time, because Biden let Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema strip those things, as well as Camille Jayapal, who's chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. So I mean, the Democrats, like, they're not giving you any reason to vote for them. People like Ro Khanna, and political commentators like Nomiki Konst, who's now running against an AOC-backed DSA endorsed candidate. Dividing the left, what she says you're not supposed to do. Anyway, that's why these people suck, and there you have it.